Hearing the Logos, a mushroom trip report by Victor Vajra, posted to earwid.org March 27, 2020. It's Christmas Day, and I'm writing this after experiencing a truly transformative experience. Harrowing, but transformative. I'm 34, married, and a father of 2 boys. I wanted to try psychedelics as a way to achieve spiritual enlightenment, whatever that means. I've always been fascinated with the power of the mind, how thought seems to dictate the course of our very lives. I've never been able to practice any organised religion, because they never really made sense to me at a fundamental level. They seem to mix abject truth with abject falsehood. Some religions, such as Hinduism, Taoism, Zen Buddhism, I find more appealing than others, for they seem to be closer to the truth than the Abrahamic religions of the West, Judaism, Islam, and Christianity. I asked a friend to procure some psilocybin mushrooms for me, and he got me 6 grams. My first trip was great. I took about 1.5 to 2 grams my first time. I was really careful and paced myself. I read all the trip reports and did extensive research. Overall, the experience was overwhelmingly positive. I experienced euphoria, some interesting geometric patterns, and made some important realizations about myself. I needed to connect more with my children and my wife. I was absent from them because I was afraid of connecting with them fully. Realizing that they needed me to provide love, strength, and guidance to them, and I felt lost and unable to provide that for them all the time. I experienced a tough childhood growing up, so I didn't exactly feel like a grown-up half the time. So I decided to repeat this experiment once again. This time, I took the remaining 3 grams. I was up late at night by myself. My wife and children were asleep. I tried setting up the mood similar to the way I had done before. I voiced a silent prayer to the mushroom spirits to go easy on me, and humbly asked them to teach me, and I was willing to learn whatever they wanted. This time, I felt nervous for some reason. I had an uncomfortable feeling in the pit of my stomach that I couldn't shake. I brushed it off and tried to relax by doing some deep breathing and meditation. It was shortly after midnight on Christmas morning when I took the 3 grams. I waited for it to take effect. Tried watching television, but that was a horrible idea. The faces started morphing and the noise was confusing. I tried using my computer, thinking that maybe I should turn on some music, but the water from the toilet started to become really loud. And then, all of a sudden, it happened. I started to hear whispers, a million whispers. I couldn't make out exactly what they were saying, just words here and there, some phrases that I could barely make out. I think I was listening to the collective unconscious. I ignored it and told myself that it wasn't real. I went back upstairs to check on my wife and children. They were sleeping, and I got a horrible feeling of dread. I felt alone, unable to reach them. I went into a spare bedroom to be by myself. I thought closing my eyes and just giving in to the trip would help me. But then I heard the voices again. They were more ominous and menacing this time. I was overwhelmed by a wave of emotions at once. Fear, revulsion, despair, hopelessness. They were all invading my consciousness. I remember reading about how sometimes psilocybin could trigger symptoms of mental illness in those who had a predisposition to it. I thought this was happening to me. I was terrified. My biggest fear in life is losing my mind. I felt like I was going completely insane. I decided that I needed to be outside. If I spent any more time in my house, I would be engulfed and fall into madness. I put on my clothes and took my cell phone. It was 2:45 in the morning. The air was cold and all the lights were bright, but the buildings were dark and foreboding. The trees were scaring me, and it felt like I was in a real-life horror movie. I thought about going back home, but I remembered that being inside was far more terrifying. I kept hearing the voices, and saw a taxi pass by me with people, and I couldn't tell whether it was coming or going. The sidewalk next to my street seemed to stretch on forever, and I seemed to be walking on a treadmill. Bright lights were terrifying me as sudden changes in light or sound would amplify the voices I was hearing. I was talking to myself each time I saw something that would scare me, and prayed to whoever was listening to get me through this. I swore that this would be the last time I was ever going to try shrooms or any hallucinogens for that matter. I thought about all the mistakes I made in my life and how I had blamed others for most of my problems. I kept thinking about how I would do things differently when I came down. I just kept on walking, and each time I would hear the voices, and it would frighten me more because it would grow louder and louder each time. Then I got the urge to repeat a mantra. Somehow I just kept saying the same words over and over as I was walking. Love, joy, peace. Love, joy, peace. Love, joy, peace. Then I started singing it. Love, joy, peace. Love, joy, peace. Love, joy, peace. Slowly my despair turned. My fear dissipated, and I was filled with the most unimaginable happiness and peace. I was singing the heartbeat of the universe, and then all at once, it was like I was flooded with information. I realized that I was not alone. I was not just an I, but that I was part of the all, this self-organizing intelligence that some would call God. This intelligence has a vibrational frequency that manifests as love, joy, and peace. I felt reborn, all at once. I realized how misguided I had been before, how cruel and unkind I'd been to myself and others, and that ultimately, everything that I deemed important was actually meaningless. My work, my income, my possessions, and even my fear of death was silly, because I, ultimately, would return my energy to the source. It was then that I truly understood all the teachings I had read in books. I realized all the events in my life had pointed me to this realization, and I was grateful to everyone who put me on the path. I was also told that the information I was given was important, because for too long human beings have gone against operating at this higher frequency, and that the universe will resonate with this frequency despite all of our efforts to go against it. I felt like I belonged for the first time in my life, like I could live in truth, and I promised that from this point forward, I would try my best to live my life as a manifestation of love, joy, and peace. That ultimately, my purpose was to try and help other human beings discover this truth, so we could all experience the supreme elation of being. I had to share this information with someone. I felt that it was selfish to keep all to myself. I wanted to tell someone, anyone, that they too could experience this connection.